All right, well, I guess we can do a little housekeeping while the last two log in. First and foremost, as I mentioned, my name is Colleen DeLange. I work full-time here at staff with my RealSource. I do a lot of the association trainings. A little bit about my background is I've also been a licensed realtor for 22 years. So it allows me to show you some of the time-saving tips and techniques, some of the cool new things that cloud has just added. I guess I'm kind of one of those techno geeks. I'm always liking to play with the new features. So there's some new live interactive features that I enjoy. You make the CMA the exact same way. It's just really how do you want to present it. So I'm going to show you some new features that they've added, some bells and whistles. We do try to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions today, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and throw those in your questions box, which is probably minimized right now at the right-hand side of your screen. There's probably a little orange arrow, if you will. If you click on that orange arrow, there is a panel that will open up, and one of those boxes that you'll see will say questions. Feel free to go ahead and type questions throughout the demonstration today. If I missed something or some of this I'm going to go at a pretty good pace, so if for any reason you need to see something again, don't hesitate to stop me. That's kind of why we do these classes in small groups. All right, so it looks like most everybody's here. It looks like we're just waiting on one more, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Before I do get started, there is nothing worse than being 5 minutes into a webinar and finding out that no one can hear or see you. So what I'm going to ask is if I can just ask one person to go into the questions box and let me know that you can see and hear me okay, we'll go ahead and get started in Cloud CMA. So if I can just ask any one person to just throw in that questions box that they can see and hear us okay. Great. Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate it. Like I said, there's nothing worse than being an instructor and finding out that something went wrong and then you're 4 or 5 minutes in and you got to start all over again. So thanks, Tina. I really appreciate it. Okay, well, really, my whole goal today is to show you some time-saving tips and techniques when you're putting together your CMA. So whether you're new, doing your first CMA, or whether you're, been doing this for years and just looking for some shortcuts, that's really my goal. I'm going to show you how to go in and find comparables in Paragon. I've used many different CMA programs, I'll be honest. I think I've used 7 now in my 22 years as an agent. I think Cloud is the easiest to use. I think it makes the best presentation, and I think it makes a wowing presentation for the seller. They now have this interactive experience where you can be with the seller and you can make changes on the fly. You can use an interactive map if one of the, maybe if they say, hey, did Joe Schmagegi on the corner, he closed yesterday, how much did he get for his home? Maybe you prepared for your CMA appointment 3 days ago. You're able to pull those properties in right from the map on the fly. You can do adjustments and nut outs right while you're there. So it's got some really cool enhancements. It also provides now for live streaming just like this. So you can actually be talking with the seller and presenting it even if they're across the country. So I think that you'll be very happy. Great question. Good. I'm glad to see people using the questions box already. Does Cloud CMA cost money to use? And the answer is actually it's a member benefit thanks to UPAR. So UPAR is giving you that member benefit. You do not have to pay anything additional. All of the things that I'm going to show you today are included in your UPAR member benefits. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just say that as an agent, I can tell you I don't like change either. And I know it's been a difficult conversion, making these changes. So what I did, I thought we'd start off with something a little different. I thought we'd actually kind of take a look at why you're going through conversion. And again, as an agent, I don't love change either, and I know it's hard, but when you see some of the new great benefits that you're getting thanks to being a UPAR member, hopefully it will kind of all make sense. I know that some of the inconveniences, you may have filled it out in a field before, it may now be a feature, and of course change is hard, but hopefully when you see some of the cool new enhancements that you're getting and some of the cool new tools and more data, it's all going to start coming together for you. All right, so I'm going to turn off my messy fuzzy hair because I'm actually in another thunderstorm. I swear the last 3 webinars I've done, we've had thunderstorms, so I guess it's just my luck. So if you hear thunder or a little background noise, I just apologize. But to answer your question is nope, nothing additional that you have to spend, Jeff. This is all part of your UPAR member benefits. All right, so I'm going to turn off my messy hair. We'll get into Cloud CMA. And I thought we'd start off with something a little bit different today. What I'd kind of like to start off with is some of the new great enhancements you're getting through UPAR. So I'm just going to kind of start there. I just did a real quick montage of why, because I know change is painful, especially if you don't know why you're making these changes. I'm happy to say that my real source is now providing more data through the state of Michigan. One of the things I struggled with as an agent is, I'm getting calls from buyers myself who are finding information faster than I could, and I did not think that was okay. And so really our goal was about 12 years ago now, we started data sharing. And in case you don't know what data sharing is, I had to literally belong to 3 different MLSs, and I had to put the information in 3 separate times. I had to pay 3 sets of MLS fees. I had to learn 3 different systems, and it just seemed like, oh my gosh, there must be a better way, right? So our CEO said, what if we started data sharing? What if we started working with others, whatever MLS system they're on, whatever MLS platform or MLS they want to belong to is great, but what if we had a way of bringing the whole state together? So because you're licensed, I guess now I have to kind of do it more like that, because you're licensed in the entire state, you should be able to get information on properties across the state. So I always found it kind of amazing that, I can only see like right here with my MLS and my MLS program. So now what I'm happy to say is that we at My Real Source now provide more data than any other MLS in the state of Michigan. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you something brand new that we just rolled out for you guys today. So what does that really mean? It just means that if there's a comp that got sold on your street, maybe it came in from, south of the bridge, maybe it came in, maybe they listed Grandma's Cottage, you're going to be able to now see that. So you're going to have more data and be able to see more information than you could before. So that's one of the main benefits. Plus, when people are calling in on properties, they're calling in on properties a lot of times, in several different areas. I want to be able to see it and find it faster than the consumer. So that's another benefit. All right, so the other, and I want to show you this because it's actually going to be brand new today. So perfect timing. Today we just released the new high resolution photos. Now I'm going to be honest, we have a lady who teaches photos, that's all she does. She has a degree in photography. She's not a realtor, but she started throwing these numbers at me and she said, Colleen, you don't understand what this means. And she's like, it's going to be this by this. And I was totally lost on it. I'm going to be totally honest. What it does mean is that we are going to have the highest resolution photos in the entire state. So really, what does that mean to you? Well, this is what most MLSs have right now. Okay, so across the state, this is what most MLSs are seeing as far as photos. This is what we offer until this morning. This is what we offer in Paragon. Now you can see, so this is the average MLS. This is what we were offering until this morning. This is what you have as of this morning. So the photos got much crisper. So let me kind of take you back. So this is the normal MLS. This is what we had until this morning, and this is what you now have. So we know that IDX sites and we know that third-party sites that are picking up our listings, we know that these buyers are very interested in the photos. These photos are going to be the highest resolution in the state, and I'm excited you guys are actually the first ones to see it. So hopefully you can see a tremendous difference between the original, where we started from quite a while ago, to where we were to where we are today. So these are more of those benefits that UPAR brings you as part of being a UPAR member. Other benefits that we're going to talk a little bit about are deep linking into BS&A. And I know not everybody in the UP uses BS&A, but I have to tell you, for me, I do like BS&A. It's not everywhere down here either, but more and more municipalities, cities, and townships are picking it up. And when you can go in and with one click go directly into a property record, that's really powerful. And some, now let me explain too, that if there is a fee, it doesn't waive the fee, but what it does is it allows you not have to go into BSNA, not have to wait for the municipality, not have to wait to re-enter the address in the municipality, and each time that has to load. So now when you click on, and I apologize, it kind of looks like a garbage can icon. It's supposed to be a government pillar. When they smushed it onto the button there, it kind of made it a little more like a trash can, in my opinion. But what it does is it takes you directly into that BSNA record for that specific property. So doing all that legwork has gone away. You're also going to see the single property website, which is another great benefit through UPAR, brand new. When you add a listing into Paragon, it automatically creates this great single property website that you can share out onto social media. Kind of looks like this. It'll pick up your branded tour. If you don't have a branded tour, you can have an unbranded tour. It'll show a gallery style view. They can ask questions and even see all of your other listings. So it's got some tremendous benefits, and that's the single property website. And then what we're going to be covering today, again, all of this is included in your UPAR benefits. So I'm not upselling anything, which I know is unusual these days. But today we're going to look at Cloud CMA. This is truly one of my favorite products. I use it all the time as an agent. They've added some new great tools that I'm going to show you today. But of course, there's that great CMA that you could do previously that's branded to you. You can add in custom pages, but they've just introduced this even easier to use Cloud Live. So we're going to take a look at that too. One of the tremendous benefits I think of Cloud Live is, one, you can use an interactive map. So if you missed a comp, and usually, by the way, it's not because we as agents miss it. It's usually because we didn't pull it in for one reason or another. Like you can see, these are all ranch style homes. Well, when you're sitting with the seller and he says, well, what about Joe Schmagegi on the corner? He got more than that for his house yesterday. I want to be able to see that. I want to be able to say, oh, well, actually, we can't use his house because he's 4,000 square feet and you're 1,000 square feet, or it's a 2-story and we looked at comparable ranches. So, but we can at least address it live because it's all interactive. The other thing it does, and I don't know if I kind of made this a little bit too small, I'll have to make it a little bigger for the next class. It also calculates if there's an additional bathroom. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little +1 here that's green. So it tells me that this has an additional bathroom. So this may have sold more than our subject property is going to sell for. May have less square footage, but it actually calculates that. This one has an additional bedroom. So it helps me figure out maybe why something closed for more or less than we're telling our subject property they will. So some really cool things. All right, so enough talking. Let's get into the good stuff. Leave out of there. So how do you start your Cloud CMA report? And really, I'm going to be honest that of the 7 CMAs I've used over the course of being an agent, I like this one because you start right in the MLS, doing a search just like if you were trying to find a property. What I also like is you can be way more specific than you can in programs like RPR, like you can in a lot of these secondary CMAs. You know, a lot of these things have CMAs built into them, these different programs. I find Cloud is the best CMA. One, because remember, it now works with data sharing, so you can pull comps from any MLS that you can see data. And the other advantage is there's an easy button. I'm all about the easy buttons. There's also a great lead generation tool that they've just released too. So I'm going to show you all of that today. I'm going to kind of start this backwards if you don't mind. I'm actually going to show you the finished product first, and then I'm going to show you exactly how to create it step by step. But here's me as an agent. Sometimes I kind of want to see, do I want to take the time to learn this? Is it really going to be a great benefit to me? Is this something that my clients are going to like? So I'm going to kind of teach it backwards. I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you a CMA that I just recently did for a listing that I have. And then I'm going to show you step by step how to do that. So basically, once the CMA is created, it's simply how do you want to present it? Now, until the new live features came out, I always presented it as a PDF. Now, I'm not a big person who likes to print, especially because I like to include a lot of interior photos. So there's a couple different ways. I'm going to actually grab a different one. I'm going to grab let's do, I've got quite a few. And as you can see, I teach this class quite often, so I want to grab a particular one so I can show it to you. Let's use this one. Actually, let's use Turnberry. I'm trying to find one that I try to create a little bit more of an example in here. So hopefully it'll make sense. So yes, let's use this one because I'll show some good examples here. All right, so when you click on View PDF, you can save the PDF right to your desktop so that you can present it that way. If you wanted to print it, of course you could, but I really like how user-friendly the look is. So I'm going to kind of just show you exactly how it's going to look, whether you print it or whether you're just showing it right from your desktop. Of course, it's got the address and who you're preparing it for, the date that it's prepared. It's got you and your contact information below. There's also some marketing pages. Now you can choose whether or not you want to use the marketing pages. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit more of a meat and potatoes girl. I'm going to really just go in generally, and I have a custom pages that I use. Like I handle objections a lot of times early on in my CMA, so I have a couple pages I created for that. But really, it's how much do you want to put into your CMA? There are pages like this, what is a CMA, but you can choose whether or not you want to use them. The page you're looking at right here about my company, this is something it took me about 30 seconds to make. I literally went to my company website, I copied and pasted what was on the website into my template, and every time I do a CMA, it's right front and center for me. Another thing I like to do, I like to show stats. Now there's a bunch of statistical reporting that you can do right out of Paragon. This is a program I use called Fast Stats or Market Stats. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. I just like this one because it's a little easier for me. But again, you could do the same thing through the stats in Paragon. But generally, when I'm sitting with a seller, I want to educate the seller on what's going on in their city or their marketplace, right? Especially right now, because it's you know, we're seeing all kind of changing things going on. So at this time, when I was sitting with this seller, I was able to show them that we were down almost 60% in inventory. So there were 219 homes on the market a year ago, 90 now. So supply and demand, what are we talking? It went up about $30,000 for our average sales price. Of course, condos are broken down separately too. I just like to educate the seller in any way possible on why we may, if we're giving them a price range, why we may put them at the low end or the high end of that price. Now, the other thing I like to do is I like to pull in the MLS ticket or the MLS report from when they purchased it so that we can go through it and say, oh yeah, I see that you paid cash, you had concessions, or you bought it for this on this and this day. I like to have that right here. Also, Realist and the BS&A record, when they ask me exactly where I got their square footage from or how I knew it was 2 bathrooms, I want to have all of that information right in front of me. So again, I pull in the BS&A record. Now, there is a really good example here, and that's kind of why I wanted to use this one. In BS&A, more and more municipalities are recording the water because water obviously is attached to the property, so an unpaid water bill is going to have to be dealt with. But they're also, and this was a great example, they're also going to generally record if the taxes have been paid. So in this particular case, and this is a true story, I sat down with this homeowner. She explained her mother had passed. It was originally mom's condo. And when we figured it all up, she owed $7,000 in unpaid property tax. Now, on a $200,000 condo, $7,000 is a pretty big swing when you're trying to net them out with all the fees and the transfer tax and commission and everything else. So I asked her why the property wasn't homesteaded if she only owned one property in Michigan. And she then explained, you know, it was mom's. So we ended up going down to the city assessor. They said, no, clearly it should have been homesteaded, and it was not. And she didn't end up having to pay all of those taxes back. She only ended up paying, I think, a third of the amount. So it was a huge help for me to be able to ask the question And it was a huge customer service app that I got to actually kind of walk her through. And she was so grateful at the end, saying, oh my gosh, you know, I was really nervous. I wasn't going to have anything out of this sale. So it was one of those things that having that record right in your CMA reminds you to ask the question. It also shows you all those important pieces. Okay, so again, here's an example of the water bill. So I can clearly see when the water was red, if there was an outstanding balance, all of that I bring in. And that way, when I'm doing a net out, I can go over all of these items and make sure that there are no surprises at the closing table. All right, so then how do you want to actually show the comparables? There's a couple different templates that you can choose from. By the way, you can create your own template. You only have to do this one time. My average CMA right now takes me between 7 and 9 minutes, obviously depending on how complicated the property is. If there's acreage or something like that, it might take me a little bit longer. But my average CMA takes between 7 and 9 minutes, because once I hit that easy button, my template pops up and it does all this part for me, which is really helpful. When we go into the actual comparables, you can choose whether you just want to show that front picture and the MLS details, or for me, I really like to include all the interior photos, because you know what happens? The seller says, hey, Joe Schmagegi, did he have a finished basement? Well, I want to be able to see that and say, well, actually, no, as you can see, he didn't have a finished basement, or yes, he did. I want to be able to answer those questions, because you know what happens with sellers today. They think you've seen every home on the market ever in existence. So we want to be able to have those pictures to quickly refer to when they ask those questions. And by the way, you can include up to 99 photos now from the MLS. That's certainly, if you're going to print it, I would probably recommend just printing the first 12 or the first one. However, if you do what I'm doing here, where we're going through it basically in a PDF that I've saved to my desktop, it's a lot more economical. All right, so as you can see, and I'm not going to take you through all of these comps, but it's really just how do you want to display those comps. I do want to take you down to a couple of the marketing pieces. I'm more of a meat and potatoes girl. I really want to tell them what I'm going to do to get their home sold, how long approximately it's going to take. And, I'd like to handle a few objections that I'll show you up front. But when we get into the analysis here, they've got some really great graphs and features that I like. Like, it'll show the average price per square foot. What is the average days on market that they should be concerned with? And as I go through this, it will also show how much they're selling versus their list price. So we can see they're selling at 102% right now at 13 days on market of what they were listed for. So I like some of these graphs. Intelligent pricing and timing, how to not overprice their home. And again, it's just really your decision if you want to use these marketing pieces. They're there if you want to pull them in. If you don't want them in your template, you don't have to have them. I do like this one particular graph, because every time, at least when I was new, I would walk in and I would do my net out, and they would look at that commission number and they'd go, oh my gosh, you must be the wealthiest person in America. Most homeowners don't understand how commission is broken down. They don't understand that there's a listing agent and someone representing the buyer. They don't understand that there are marketing fees. I mean, even my signs, to put up are costing money. So a lot of times they just don't understand that. So when it's broken down in a graph like this, it's a great way to handle those commission objections, sort of going over those types of things. All right, so that is the cloud CMA. So let's actually dive in. Hopefully you thought that that looked pretty cool. And let's dive in. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Now, when you're doing a CMA, obviously the most important thing in a CMA is finding like comparables. Okay, so obviously, and if you're brand new, you're never going to compare a 2-bedroom home to a 4-bedroom home. That's maybe your 2-bedroom is 1,000 square foot and you've got a 4-bedroom 4,000 square foot. That wouldn't make sense, right? So how do you find those comparables? What's a good way to do what an appraiser is going to do when you're looking for a comparison? We're going to cover all of that. We're going to talk about what the appraisers use. And I know everybody always says at this point, well, what does it matter, Colleen? It's going to sell for over asking. Why do I need to know what it's going to appraise for? Well, you certainly do, because if you take an offer and it appraises at 300 and you've accepted an offer for 350, you got to know who's going to make up that 50,000, right? So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks in searching in Paragon. I'm also going to show you some fields and features that sort of got moved around in your conversion. So I'm kind of customizing this class up a little bit so we can cover all of that. All right, so let's get back to the good stuff. Obviously, if you are listing a single family home, really I want to start under search, because I obviously want to compare apples to apples. So if I'm looking for a single family home or a single family condo, then I'm going to go to my search by class, which would be residential. So what criteria do you really need to add in? How do you make it so the comparables make sense and stack up? So first, if you, and this was a little bit confusing, I know from before, if you're searching for a single family home, well, that's just a residential single family. But if you're looking for a condo, well, remember, you can actually click over there on that magnifying glass and you can separate whether you want just condos, single family homes, or even farms. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm just looking for a traditional single family home. Obviously, if I am looking for comparables to do my CMA, the most important thing I need are closed sales, right? I want to see what they closed for. I'm going to be honest, I'm a huge Floyd Wickman fan. Probably most people on this call don't know who Floyd Wickman is, but he was a great real estate coach in the 80s and 90s, really funny guy. And he would always say, hey, if you're going to walk in and sit at somebody's kitchen table, you better know what actives are around that kitchen table, and you better also know what's pending, because that seller is going to. So I always choose active and pending. Of course, the numbers are really derived from what's closed. Now, I'm also going to be honest, this is where I'm happy Brian's not on the call. I hate these MLS calendars where you got to click and then click and click and click. Use these great little drop downs. Really, in this market, I really want to know what's been going on in the last 6 months. That's the important thing. So I'm going to click on 6 months here. And I don't really care about rentals. I'm really just looking for what's for sale. And I'm going to drop on down to where it says structure style. Now, for you guys, because some people in the UP are working a little more rural area, this may not be a field that you choose. Where I am, it's kind of cookie cutter homes in here. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to include structure style because I want my comps to be as close as possible. But what you've noticed is I've actually bypassed the area and a lot of these other fields, because I'm going to show you a couple tricks there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to scroll down a little further. Now, obviously, bedrooms is really important. My subject property is going to be 3 bedrooms. So I'm going to do 3 to 4 just to make sure I get enough inventory. Of course, there's bathrooms. How many bathrooms? This happens to be a 1.5. So I'm going to go to 1 to 2. And does it have a basement? Obviously, that's going to be a big indicator. And does it have a garage? Now, a lot of times when I help out with tech support, I will hear, well, Colleen, how do I put that it's a 2-car garage? Or how do I put attached or detached? Remember, that really gets into features. So you can definitely add that to your search criteria. If you don't know how, let me show you. Features work like this: must have, must not have, or must have at least one of these, especially if you're setting up a buyer, so that it automatically goes to your buyer's email address as a new home that they might want to view, right? We teach that in the Collab Center. That's what the Collab Center is. It's auto prospecting. It basically allows you to set up a search, tie your buyer's name to it. It emails your buyer the second any new home goes on the market with their criteria. However, if you want to point out that maybe you're looking for comps with a finished basement, or there's some particular feature that you want to make sure you're including, that's really what features are for. Now, I'm going to be honest, I use features more on the buy side than I do in a CMA. But every once in a while, there'll be something that you really need to be able to stack up properly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually click on this magnifying glass for one moment, because part of this class is that I want to show you some of the things that maybe got changed from your previous Paragon system to now. The first thing is I want to apologize. I know you guys, your geography is so much different than, you know, like I said, we have 97% of the state in our data share now. But there were a lot of things that were very unique to you and that we had to add. And when we rolled it out, they were not there. So I apologize. They have been added. They've been backfilled so you can search on them. But I know it was a little bit of a bumpy start. But what I want to talk about is water features. One of the big things was, can you search on Great Lake? Can you search on Interior Lake? And the answer is yes. You even have more options than you had previously. So things like beach access, beachfront, canal frontage, creek, stream, brook, island, lake frontage, river access, pond, Great Lake, Interior Lake, and so many more are in here. So you still can add those in as a way of saying, you know, hey, I only want to see comparables with this, or I only want to see homes for my buyer that contain this. Those are still there. Another thing is because of your geography, there were things like utilities, electric at street, electric at property that weren't there out of the gate. So let me show you those as well. If you scroll down, pretty much anything after the green features, we added strictly for UPAR. Meaning when you go into electric, it's going to show you, we had a few things in here, but we've really increased this. And I'm so happy because I had begged Brian for, I can't tell you how long, for generator. And because you guys asked for generator, we finally got it. So it's very exciting. So generator is there. A lot of the utilities you'll notice under here, like cable available, phone line available, all of those propane tank leased, propane tank owned, hardline internet, all of those are included under those utility features. View, things like canal, lake view, golf course, river ski slope. So all of those have been added. Your occupancy you'll find under there. Bluffs for the shoreline. So pretty much think of, if you're looking for something that you think is specific to you, go right to that bottom. Basically, it's Z on down, and you'll find a lot of those things that were in your previous version. Okay. For me, I'm not going to add those things in here because I'm going to kind of do a run-of-the-mill comparables here, but I do want to talk a minute about square footage, especially over here where I am. As I mentioned, it's kind of cookie cutter homes, and square footage with probably the 15 or 20 appraiser friends that I've asked throughout the state. They say, Colleen, it's a no-brainer. We have a 20% square footage rule. So in this particular example, the house is 1,361 square feet. So if I take my calculator here and I type in 1,361, and if you can do this in your head, you're way better than I am, times 20 comes out to be 272. So if I now take that 1,361 and I add that 272, I can see about 1,600 is going to be my top range. Now, if I take that 1,361 minus the 272, I can see about 1,100 is going to be my bottom range. So that gives me my 20% square footage rule. Now, where you guys are, it could be a little bit more rule. And so sometimes you have to go outside these, but I was always told by most of my appraiser friends, they're going to start at the 20% square footage rule. That way you are not comparing a 1,000 square foot brick ranch to a 5,000, 4-bedroom colonial. The idea is you want to keep those comparables as similar as possible. All right, so the next question, what do we do from here? Well, of course, if you're looking here, you can see, well, lady with the fuzzy hair, you've got 11,000 comps. And yes, that would be really bad because we've put in no area. So how do we actually do the most important field, which is location, location, location? So let's scroll up and we're going to search by map because that's technically what an appraiser is going to do too. So I'm going to go right into my search by map field. What I want to do is I actually want to say, okay, my appraiser, when he's looking for comps, he's going to look for comps that are going to be generally within it where I am, generally within a mile. Now, sometimes, again, if you're in a really rural area, you may have to go outside of that. You may have to go to 3 miles or 5 miles, but that's where they're generally going to start, at least here. So how do I now, I don't know, for me, when I start moving my map around, all of a sudden I start looking at like the whole North America, the whole continent map. I really don't want to do that. I want to be a lot more specific with a lot less work. So here's your first tip and technique. If you go up to where it says center your map, this is where you're going to simply type in 41539, your subject property address, the property you're going to list. But here's the rule, the little trick to making this work. It uses Google Maps. If you know anything about Google, less is best. So although this is 41539 Wessel Drive, leave off the drives, the ways, the places, the circles, the boulevards. I would leave those off. But you do want to do comma, the city. Once I do that, now this is always done in 2 steps if you want this to work efficiently for you. You'll notice that my map actually opened to where my office location is, because that's what we know about you. That's what UPAR has on file, what brokerage you are. That's of course what gets sent over when the account is set up. So it opens, this little X opens to your office location. However, I want to now do my map from the actual address of my listing appointment tonight. So I'm going to click on this magnifying glass, and what you're going to see is it immediately moves you in without having to, go through all that moving around on the map. It moves me right in where my subject property is going to be. The next thing I want to do is I want to find out, is there any comparables within 1 mile of my subject property? So I'm going to go to this miles area. I'm going to type in the number 1, search radius, and it's going to draw that circle on for me. As I can see right here, those comps are going to start auto-populating. By the way, if you see these little clustered numbers, that just means that 2 comps were very close together. If you zoom in, it will break them apart. But sometimes if they're too close, they're kind of hard to navigate if you don't click on them exactly. So if you see a cluster like this, you can simply click on it, and it will actually put the properties right here on the left, and I can go through them that way. So again, you can just click into them, or you can actually click on the cluster and go through it that way. All right, so we've got some comps that are carrying over, but let's say this happens to be maybe more on the eastern part of the UP. Maybe you're listing Grandma's Cottage and it's over a little ways. Well, the last thing you want to have to do is drive over there and check out the neighborhood ahead of time, right? Because my father used to have some property up in the beautiful Keweenaw Peninsula, right on Lake Superior, just past Eagle River. And I remember it took a good amount of time, to drive through that beautiful country. And so if you are listing a little ways away from you, you might want to be able to see that neighborhood or that home without having to drive all the way over there. So there's this little yellow man, and I'm going to be totally honest, I have seen him a million different places, but I never actually clicked on him before. So let me show you what he does. If you grab that little yellow Google man and you simply set him in front of your subject property, it will allow you to tour the entire neighborhood. So I can actually walk down the street. I can see the property to the left. I can see the property to the right. And I can actually view the neighborhood. By the way, if you're using the Collab Center, your buyers can do this too. So they can actually see the neighborhoods before getting in the car. And with gas as expensive as it is, I guess that's a really good thing these days. The other thing is it will also flag the subject property. So I can see right here, my subject pin, remember when we started? This is the house that I put in as my listing subject property. So it's actually flagging it. And now I can see the property to the left and the property to the right. It's actually labeling the streets for me so that I can walk down and I can view the entire neighborhood without ever having to leave. Probably my number 1 question I get at this point is people say, okay, Colleen, how do I get out of here now? When you're ready to leave the Google view, you simply just click on this little arrow to the left here, and it's going to take you back out. Another great tip, Ryan actually increased how many maps you can have. Now, this is really more of a buyer tip I'm about to tell you, but if you're working with a buyer and you're using the Collab Center where you're setting them up for prospecting so they get those new homes immediately delivered right to them, you can have up to 10 shapes now on your map. But the reason I tell you that is it's also good if you're doing a CMA. So we are going to use Stephanie for our example today. So Stephanie, thanks for being our example on the call today. We are going to say that Stephanie is having a great year. We're going to pretend that this is a $2 million listing. So Stephanie, let's say she works waterfront. We're going to pretend this is beautiful Lake Superior. She works waterfront. She's got a couple $1 million listings or $2 million listings, but we're listing a little brick ranch off the water. So if we pull in all her fancy $1 million listings, unfortunately, our CMA is probably not going to come out right. So what if I told you you could actually exclude an area of your CMA? So let's do that. So when you create this 1 mile radius, it really does that for you. By the way, if you didn't get any comps, let's pretend for a moment you did your circle, you did your radius just like we did, and you didn't get any comps. Well, you can actually click on the radius and you can expand it out a little bit at a time until you get additional comps. So you can actually do that as well. But why I wanted to show you this is, let's say that, again, we're going to use Stephanie. She's got these $2 million listings right here, but we really don't want to screw up what we got going, off the water. So all we're going to do is we're going to go to this draw box. The one over here to the left, so there is two, we got to be kind of careful, but you go to this draw tool, and I personally like the polygon. I'm going to say, well, you know what, I love that Stephanie has all these $1 million listings, but that's not going to help me get the right comps. So I'm literally going to draw a shape on my shape. Now you're probably thinking, okay, lady with the fuzzy hair, you just drew a shape, the comps are still there. One more step. You want to go right to this blue checkbox here. You want to click on it, and you've just excluded it. Now, this is great if you have a buyer who's looking in maybe a whole county, except for maybe this one little pocket. You can actually exclude, even if you're looking in a big area, you can exclude a chunk of that area. In this case, I don't want those waterfront $1 million homes screwing up my price range. So I've excluded Stephanie's $1 million homes. No offense, Stephanie, I'm excited for you. I just don't want it to mess up my CMA numbers, but you can actually exclude an area too. All right, some other tools that are in here, and I'm just going to remove that just so it doesn't get too complicated. And that's, by the way, also really good if you have an area where maybe your 1 mile has some brand new construction and maybe some homes built in the 1930s, and you want to make sure that you're only pulling the new construction comps so that your comps come out right, you could actually do that. Or of course you could just put in year built, and that would do it too. But there are different ways to do these things. And so sometimes you get in those situations where it gets a little tight and you need a way to kind of use those parameters, and that's a good way to do that. The next one is layers. I really like this for floodplain information. I have a buyer who was he must have said it 10 times to me, I'm not paying flood insurance, but he's looking in Harrison Township, which is a whole city by the water. So, and I always tell them, this is not a survey. This is just meant to be a visual indicator, but they can see this too. Under layers, you can actually add in things like parcel lines. You can also add in floodplains. So let's say your buyer wanted to know, would I need flood insurance if I lived in a particular area? Well, as you can see, I just applied the floodplain information, and it is giving me a visual indicator of probably where I'm going to need flood insurance according to the FEMA maps. So again, there's a bunch of different tools in there. Parcel lines is another one. The trickiest thing about using these in the mapping, by the way, is simply zooming in and zooming out. If it's something small like a parcel line, you generally really have to zoom in because obviously those are going to be very small and you've got to be able to see the parcels. So as I zoom in, I can start to see these parcels. Over here, I can see even more detail. And again, when you're zooming in on that parcel, you can even see the lot lines blown up here. So not only is it giving me a visual indicator of that unlisted, and this is not a listed property, it's just showing me a parcel, but it's also showing me the parcel lines. So I can see what the frontage may be, or the, as you can see, it's 64.76 frontage on this particular lot. So it's a good way to just use that for a visual indicator too. So keep in mind, these are really great, handy little tools to add in as far as that layering. The hardest part of using those is really just the zooming in and zooming out, depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for municipality, well, if you're looking for a huge area, you really want to be zoomed out. If you're looking for something small like parcel lines, then you certainly want to be zoomed in so you can get all of that detail. All right, so we're starting to see some comps that are coming in. If you got, and I do this all the time, I get all the way to this step and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to, take out the leases, or, oh man, I meant to filter it by, bedrooms, or I have too many. You always can bounce back and forth. So even though you're on the map view, you can still click on criteria and add anything that you may have missed from here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. From here, last, I can now see I've got 18. Now, really, when you're doing a CMA, I was always taught to shoot between 3 and 5 closed comparables. That's really what you're looking for. But remember, we added some actives and some pendings as well. Now, here's something about me that you may not know. I have a little OCD, and they don't sort them like my agent brain sorts things. So here's a little tip. When you get all of these results, the best thing to do is think of your spreadsheet like an Excel spreadsheet. Did you know that you can actually click on the column headings to sort things? I didn't know that for a long time, so I'm just going to show it to you. But it used to drive me crazy when I'd have to filter through all of them. So if you just click on status, it will sort them. Actives with actives, close with close. So I'm going to just, for the sake of time, obviously, you do want to go through them. You want to find the most like comparables possible. But here's another tip. If you have included interior lake, or if you have included something like school district, did you know you can also move these around? So if school district is really important in your search, you can move these columns. I hate when I used to always have to scroll over every single time. It used to make me crazy. So you can actually just move them in the order you want, and it will remember that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a couple just for the sake of time. Obviously, we'd put it even more detail, probably like maybe year built. Do I have any pendings? I'm going to grab these 2 pendings as well. All right, another tip. When you have just the ones you want to work with, why do I need all these blanks, right? That's kind of irritating. I can't see what I'm working with. Click on this checked button, and it will take out all the ones you don't want and just leave you with the 9 you selected. So now we can go ahead and pull those over. So again, really your goal is to have between 3 and 5 closed comps in most scenarios. Now, there are times where I've done a CMA and I've gotten 1, and I've been thrilled because it's such a unique property. I've been thrilled to find 1. There are times that, you go in and you have 10 and you really got to drill it down. So that's really why, in my opinion, a Zestimate is never going to be the answer. Plus, a Zestimate can't smell a house, right? There is value when you walk in and a home is meticulously maintained or clean or smells good versus, someone who may have had 10 pets in the home and things are really run down and looking dirty, right? So those are things that we as agents can still do that these other IDX and other syndication sites cannot. All right, so I've got these checked. The next thing I want to do is I want to pull them all into cloud. So now you're probably thinking at this point, well, this seems like it's taking a while. Well, actually, it takes about 7 to 9 minutes, but of course I'm going through a lot of extra things to point them out so that you know where they are. But I'm going to say that I now want to use the easy button. The easy button is kind of what we refer to as a plugin. That kind of is why there's this little plug right here. I want to take these 9 properties and I want to pull them directly into Cloud CMA. Now, the good news is it doesn't matter which MLS they're coming from, because now you're in the data share. So that means it doesn't really matter what MLS they're coming from. You can still pull them in, whether you listed them or a neighboring MLS listed them. As long as they're data sharing with you, you can pull those in. So as you can see, I've got several different MLSs included here. So right from here, I'm going to go ahead and hit Actions or Plugin, kind of think it as your plugin. And there are two choices for Cloud. Cloud also, if you were working with a buyer and you wanted to create like a mini tour with driving directions and things of that nature, you can do that. But for this example, we are just doing a CMA for a seller. So we're just going to pick Cloud CMA, traditional CMA. Now, it's going to take all of those properties that we just selected, and it's going to bring them over into Cloud. So down here where you see MLS numbers, I hate to admit, but back in the day, we had to type all those in, and you can see how long they are. I never could get them right. I was always missing one or two. So now it actually does all that hard work for you. What you'll need to do is you'll need to do something like adding in the seller's name. So we're going to call this Sally Ann Seller. And when you go to the address, this is cool. This is something that they added not too long ago. When you start typing in the street address, it will quick fill for you. Now, why does it do that? It's going to start pulling in the property information from the tax records for you. So right here, it just pulled in that there are 3 bedrooms, 1 full bath. If you need to change this, of course you can. Amount of square footage, was 1361. If you don't have a cover, I'm going to show you a quick tip or kind of a cheat around that. If you don't have a photo, your cover will be kind of like that ugly Google overhead shot. So I'm going to show you a real quick way around that to add a really nice looking cover. So all you have to do from here is really click Fetch Listings. Now it's going to pull all those listings in and create your report. But before we do that, I kind of want to show you this little trick that I found when it comes to property photos. Because again, if a property is 2 hours away from you, you probably don't want to have to go all the way over, spend an hour with the seller on the phone getting all the details of the property, then go all the way over and take photos, and then go back and do your CMA and then drive back again. It's kind of redundant. So if you are one-stepping this listing, an easy way to grab a photo. Now, you can't grab an MLS photo, right? Because there are rules in the MLS that state whoever basically clicks the shutter owns that photo. So when Joe Schmagegi clicks the shutter on his camera, copyright says that Joe Schmagegi owns the rights to that photo. So we don't let you take them from the MLS, plus a lot of them may have watermarks or even hidden watermarks so that those photos can't be used. Especially if they've used a professional photographer or someone of that nature. But there are public record photos like BS&A or like the tax photos. So let's take a look at that next. I'm just going to minimize this for 1 second. Generally, even before you start pulling your comparables up, you got to know about the property, right? So how do you find information about the property, especially if it's been listed before? You could go right to the power search here at the top. So I'm just going to type in my 41539 Wessel here. I can go right to the power search at the top, and I can pull up that listing report. Now, remember I told you there's that garbage can icon right there. It's not a garbage can. I know it looks like it. I give Brian a lot of grief about it. It's actually the BS&A record. So when you click on that garbage can looking icon, that is going to take you into the, that's going to take you directly into the BS&A record for that property. So the idea here, I'm going to pull, I lost my connection there for a second. Let me try that again. So when I click that BS&A icon, the idea is I now can go directly into BS&A for that property. Apologize, I got a little hung up there for a second. So hopefully you can see that. When I go into our 41539 Wessel, instead of having to log into BSNA, logging into the municipality, now adding the address or the owner name, waiting for that search to load, it takes me directly there. This is where I want to start doing my homework, right? This is where I can see it was built in 1973. It has one full bath, one lab or one half bath. It's got 3 bedrooms, 1,361. So this is where I was gathering my information from. Now what I do, here's your next tips, tip number 2, I save this public record photo. So I simply click on it, I right click on it, and I do a save image as. Then I simply name the photo. So we're going to call this UPAR example. And then I can use it in my CMA. Now, another thing that I would recommend you do is I like to bring the BSNA record into my CMA. Because when they ask me, well, where did you get that square footage? Where did you find out I have those delinquent taxes? And when they say, you never told me about those delinquent taxes, well, guess what? I want to be able to have that so I can say, well, actually, and we can see right here, there's a 362662 bill that's going to have to be paid, right? So I want to be able to actually pull this into cloud. So what I generally do here, I'll do it with you, I generally will print this as a PDF or I will save this to my desktop. And that way, so I'm just going to make this a quick PDF here. That way, when I go back to it, I can pull it right into cloud. And I'm going to show you how to do all of that. So and I generally do that before the CMA. So that's how I'm getting my information. That's how I'm pulling up all that great detail. So now when we go back and we're doing our comps, we're in our CMA, going back to where we started, when I click add cover photo, see what I'm doing? I'm literally just going back to our photo, which I called UPAR example here. And I'm going to use that public record photo. Now, what you're going to notice here is that there's this terrible looking date on there. So I also want to crop that out, right? I want to make sure that that's not going to show up on my beautiful cover. So you can even crop that photo right from here. That way it looks much nicer on our cover. So we brought in all the listings. We've got a great cover photo. Next, we're going to fetch those listings and start pulling them into our report. Now, again, on average, I know I'm covering a lot here. On average, you're looking at 7 to 9 minutes. Probably the first time you do it, maybe 15. But this next page is really just for you, the agent. Your clients are not going to see this. What this is it's just giving you a breakdown of what it's pulled in. Because every once in a while, you get to this point and you go, oh man, what was I thinking? You know, I can see what my average price is here. And I left this 355 in. I did not mean to do that. Well, I can simply deselect it and it's going to remove that from the comps. Details and adjustments. This is where you can go in. You can see the property photos of a property in case you need one more look at it. Maybe you're paring it down a little bit and you just want to take a look and make sure you didn't miss anything. This is also where you can value a positive or a negative adjustment. Now, I wish, quite honestly, I wish I had this skill. You know, I watch HGTV like probably everyone, right? And I watch this Joanna Gaines. She walks in the kitchen. She's like, you know what? I just take out this wall and we just do this. It's going to bring, you know, $70,000 more to the, and she's amazing, right? I cannot do that. I do not have this skill. However, because you are a realtor member, you have something called RPR. Did you know that there's a tool in RPR called the Refined Value tool that will actually take where the property is located? It will ask you a series of questions as the agent, and it will actually give you a value for that home. Because let's face it, if you put $10,000 into a kitchen in California, and you put $10,000 into a kitchen where I live, it's going to be radically worth a radical difference, right? I mean, it's going to be worth a whole lot more in California. So what they do is they actually go in and they take where the property is located, what type of improvement, and then it asks you, the agent, a series of questions, and it actually gives you a number. So I don't know if you're interested in that. And again, we have a link to RPR for you under resources. It's not something you get through the MLS. It's something you get through NAR, but it is really cool. So if you have any interest in seeing it, I'd be happy to cover it at the end. It's not normally part of the class, but if I really like it and I use it as an agent. So if you would like to see it, just put in the questions, yeah, when we're done, if you could show us that, that'd be great. If not, we'll blow by it. I like it just because I've never seen anything give a calculation to that, or like a garage. If you are listing a home in the subdivision and they all have garages, but your subject property doesn't, what's the value for that particular home? So I didn't really know there was a tool that we have access to through NAR. And again, it's not an upsell, it's something you already get through your NAR benefit. But if you're interested in finding out more about that, just put in the questions mark and I'll try to cover it at the end. Okay, because some people may not care at all. All right, so back into our CMA. So you can put a positive or negative value here. And again, if you've gotten this far and you forgot to remove something, you can remove it from here. You can also do a price range. Good example, I had this cute little brick ranch that I listed in a nearby city, and when I drove by the house, it was the cutest. I mean, every flower was like in a row, painted shutters, immaculately maintained, just the cutest little house. And so I did my CMA and get it all ready. And back in the day, it was when we still printed them. So, you know, I walk in, I got my little folder, got my CMA and all ready to go through it. And I kid you not, my feet stepped through the door into 6-inch blue shag carpeting. Every single wall had those big Brady Bunch stick-on flowers. You know what I'm talking about? And I know they say it's coming back, but I guarantee you it ain't ever coming this far back. So it was just kind of one of those things. So I'm in the bathroom. Back then we used those binder ones, you know, like they were the, you know, we all had them like binded together with a little binder roll. So I'm in the bathroom literally trying to pull out the page where I give the suggested price. The good news is you don't have to do that anymore. You can actually click a button either on your tablet or if you're doing the interactive, and you can actually change your suggested price on the fly. So you won't have those embarrassing situations like I did. So it's good to know, good to have those interactive tools. You can put a price range in here, and you can also do a net sheet. Now, I worked at ZipForm for many years. It's now ZipLogix. Back in the day, it used to be ZipForm, then they changed the name to ZipLogix. And I know you guys use ZipForm. I really love the net sheets in ZipForm and in Transaction Desk. Now they're both owned by Lone Wolf, so I use those. I'm a big fan because they auto-calculate. They've got a lot more, they just have a lot more functionality to those fields. So I save it as a PDF and I bring that in. However, if you wanted to create a net sheet in here, you could do that. The only thing is you have to do it every single time, and you have to do the math here, where in ZipForm and Transaction Desk, that's generally done for you. And then I just pull it in. So for me, you could do it here. I find it a little bit more work, but it is there if you're not using a forms program. Okay, so basically if you did absolutely nothing on this page, you would still be fine. But there are times where you may want to move around your comparables. And what I mean is sometimes it's putting them in the right order, right? I remember my very first CMA appointment, my broker on the way out, he said, Colleen, get that price down there, get that price down there, don't overprice it. So, you know, I was so nervous. Of course, I'm sitting there with the seller, and I got all my really low comps right out of the gate. And the homeowner was almost so appalled, I almost didn't get to finish my CMA. So sometimes it's kind of moving your comps around. So if you want to move them, you just drag and drop them. So if you're trying to soften the blow or you're trying to tell a story, you can actually move them into the order by simply just grabbing the middle of the bar and dragging and dropping where you want them to go. But again, if you did absolutely nothing on this page, you'd be totally fine, because where it really matters is the customizing. Again, if you have a template set up, you don't even have to do this part. But basically, think of it this way. Everything on this page, and by the way, the cloud is actually just these 4 tabs along the top. That's what we're doing. I click the green button, but you could even click on the tab. It's just personal preference. It works like this. Everything that's going to appear in your report is basically going to be under the CMA report here in white. anything additional that you want to add, like custom pages or resumes or, you know, some of those graphs or maybe some of the marketing pieces, that's over here to the left. If you want to add it, you're simply going to click plus and it's going to add it in. If you want to remove something, you're simply going to click the minus button and it's going to pull it out for you. So this is what's in your report. This is what's available, okay? There's different themes that you can choose from. The theme is just really your company colors. So you don't want to walk in there with the Remax balloon if you work at Century 21, right? No big deal. You want to pick, there's tons of colors. By the way, I should mention that Real Estate One and Remax have paid for the entire state to have their custom pages. They've done, you know, beautiful jobs with their high gloss brochures and things like that. Anyway, they're all in here. If you are a Remax agent, you automatically get that. If you are a Real Estate One agent, you will automatically see that, and you can choose from that. For everyone else, there are tons of choices for custom colors. There isn't one I haven't been able to find yet. I do prefer the modern themes myself because it actually has your photo and contact information at the bottom of every page. So just a little tip. The layout is simply how do you want your comps laid out. I personally prefer the photo with max data, but if you're printing it, you're probably going to want to do the 4-column where it's just putting 3 or 4 on a page. I like this one because I think it shows the best. It's the easiest for the consumers to read, and it brings over all the MLS information so I can go over the comments if there's something that I missed. Again, you can save anything as a template. You can name it whatever you want. Maybe I want to call this Amanda's Awesome Template. You name it whatever you want, or you can apply a template from here. So really, really easy. You can name it or apply any of the templates that you've created. And as I go through, and there is something called a web lead. We're gonna talk about that when we get into the lead generation portion of Cloud. Because there's a cool new lead generation tool that they give you too. But anyway, you're basically now just creating what you want to be in your report. Again, you can drag and drop them. If you have custom pages, remember how I said I like to handle objections in my CMA instead of every homeowner. Let's face it, I teach a new beginner class called the Roadmap, and we have the same conversation every time I teach it. They say, well, but what happens when they say, are you going to put my house on Zillow? And you know, that's what happens every time we go on a listing appointment these days. How are you going to market my house? Am I going to be on Zillow? Am I going to be on Realtor.com? Where it comes up all the time. So what I did is I just made a custom page that actually addresses that, so I can handle that objection right in my CMA. I just labeled it sites. You can call it whatever you want, and you're more than welcome to my template if you like. But basically what I did is I just took the big logos from the ones that they would know. And then I said, my broker actually syndicates to 400 different sites. And so, you know, here's the top ones, of course, that you'll be on. But I put that right in my CMA. This is one of my custom pages. And that way, as we're going through the CMA, I remember to handle that objection before it even shows up. That BS&A record, I want to bring that in. I want to show where I got their square footage. I want to show where I got their tax data. So I'm pulling that right in. Things like market stats, you know, what's going on in their neighborhood, I'm pulling that in. If I decided I'm going to print it and maybe I don't want to have all 99 of the photos, maybe I just want to leave the first dozen, you can do that. You're just going to click that minus button and it's only going to show the first dozen. So if you're printing them, you're not printing hundreds of pages of color photos. So all different good examples. Again, you can bring in Realist, BS&A. Oh, another one that I did. So here was, and I try to bring up these examples just as they happen to me, and I think, oh man, somebody else may have this happen. I got a call from an out-of-country investor, and he at one time had bought up a bunch of homes in the Detroit market and in a neighboring market in Warren, and he'd bought them sight unseen. And he called me and he said, you know, I hear the market is incredibly hot. A well, I want to get rid of some of these properties, and I think we should get record profits. So just call me and tell me how much money we're going to make. You know, like that's. So of course, I went to the first one, and it was tagged for no C of O. It was falling apart. It had been rented out. You could tell the renters did not care for the home. Matter of fact, when I walked in, there was water running all over the floor. They had actually removed the hot water tank and left the water run. So it was a little bit of a mess. So here I have this out-of-country investor who's never seen it. How do I tell him? Now I'm the bad guy. If I walk in and I say, well, you know, I hate to tell you this, it's really not in good shape, he's going to be like, right? He's never met me. He doesn't know me. So how do you show him instead of tell him? Kind of back to that old Floyd Wickman again. He always said, Colleen, if you're going to go list a home, don't tell them anything. Show them everything on paper. They're not your friend yet. They're your friend after you sign and you're working on selling their home. Right now, they're interviewing you. So don't tell them your opinion. Show them on paper. So how do I do that in my CMA? So what I did, I just grabbed my camera and I went over and I took some photos. The first photo I took was the tagging that it could not be lived in because it had no C of O. Secondly, I tagged a lot of the debris and things. Actually, I went in and cleaned it up even before I took the photos because it did not look good. A lot of the cabinets had been pulled off the walls. This is the room I went in and there was water running on the floor. So long story short, this is where one of the cupboards, there was a hot water tank missing. So I took pictures of everything and I just actually saved that to a Word doc. So I inserted the pictures on a Word doc and then pulled it into Cloud, which creates a PDF for you. And so now I had all these great pictures that I just included in that CMA. And thankfully it worked. He said, you know, thanks for telling me, you know, I had no idea. I'd never been in the property, so I didn't know what the condition was, but it immediately got us on the same page. So it's doing things like that. You can bring in any pages into Cloud. What Cloud does is it generally will convert everything to a PDF, but the idea is then you can drag and drop them into the order that you wish. All right, so lastly is just saving it. And when I say saving it in Cloud is publishing. Publishing just means any change you make when you're ready to save it. If you change the name, if you mess up the address, you got to change the address. You just have to remember to publish it again. As soon as you publish that, it will then take on those changes. Of course, you can email this. As I showed you in the beginning, you can present it as a PDF. You could just email the report over to the homeowner, but I do want to show you the new live version. I think it's very cool, and you can do some things you could not previously do. One of the things that you can do is that you can actually put a video resume in now, which I really think is cool. So you could have even on your phone, you could be standing, you could have somebody grab your phone, you could be standing in front of the sign, shaking hands with someone, talking about, you know, how, you know, you sold their home in 5 days and got them 10,000 hours more than asking. I want to do the same for you. Could do just a really quick, cool video resume that you now can include in the live version. So you can see it took about 15 seconds to publish the report. Again, if I'm just showing it in the PDF version, we kind of already went through that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now go into the live. You make the report the same way. Blow it up a little for you. You make the report the same way. It's just how do you want to present it? So instead of clicking on the PDF version, I now clicked on the live version. If you want to present it, if you want to just hit the start presentation, it'll take you through screen by screen. However, if you want to present this in a live stream, kind of like we're doing via webinar, but you want to be able to talk to them, you could do it via Zoom. You could do it via Google Hangout. You could do it via Screen. Screen is just the makers of Slack, if you know what Slack is. You could do it Microsoft Teams. You could do it Skype. But the idea is if you want to present it and your seller is out of town or on vacation, or like my case, he's out of the country, this is a great way to go through it and answer those questions with them. They actually had this in production, believe it or not, before the shelter in place, and they were able to fast stream it when the shelter in place happened so that people could start using it. So it was really amazing that they already had the technology already started. And so it definitely couldn't come at a better time. So when I want to now go through it, and I'm just not going to go through all of these, but again, you can put your video resume in when you're talking about your company or who you are. But what I do want to point out here is the comps portion. So I'm going to click on comps because this is where I think they've really done a fantastic job. So if I go into the comps, I can, of course, compare the comps that I've already set up. So here's our subject property again. You can see, and I apologize, and let me see if I can blow it up a little bit for you. Okay, so this is a little bit better. I apologize, it's a little harder to see via webinar, but this has 2 garage spaces versus my home that I believe this had 2 additional garage spaces. So this one had 1 less bathroom. This one had a smaller lot. This one had more square footage. So you can actually see, you can also see which ones are closest to the subject property. But here's what I really liked. So let's use Stephanie again. Stephanie is, she's at the CMA appointment, the seller sitting next to her. Now she prepared for this appointment 3 days ago, okay? The seller says, well, Stephanie, that's great, but you didn't pull in my neighbor who closed yesterday and he got a lot more money for his home. And Stephanie says, okay, well, where does he live? And so let's say he lives over here on, what is this? I think this is Weber. We'll use Arcadia, that's close enough. If I click on Arcadia, it's going to show me that home right over here to the left. So I can say, well, actually, this one had a lot more square footage, 50% more square footage than you did. That's why we didn't include it. Yours is 1,361 square footage. This is 2,100. Or maybe it's a colonial and you did ranches. This actually happens to be a colonial. But if we're doing that and we realize, oh, geez, you know what? That would be a good comp. We can also just elect to now make it a comp on the fly. So these are things, again, that we could not do before. We couldn't see that whole data map. If you zoom out, you see just the comps that you picked. But by zooming in, if there's a comp you missed, it shows you all of the comps in the MLS. So if there's one you need to review, you can actually do it on the fly now, which I think is so cool because we couldn't do that before. Then I can go through them and I can even go through the summary or the breakdown with them. So I'm a big fan of the way they do that. I think they've done a really good job of sort of streamlining it and not making it hard. Okay, so that is really Cloud CMA in a nutshell. And I know you're probably thinking it took a long time, but that's because I showed you every single bell and whistle. Remember, the hardest part, if you remember nothing else, the hardest part is really starting in Paragon, picking your comparables, going up to your actions button, and then pulling them in to Cloud CMA. That is your easy button. Okay. Now, Cloud does a whole lot more than just CMAs. So I kind of want to point that out. Cloud does flyers. You can present it as a PDF. You can present it as the live view. You can go up here. You can email it out. You can edit it at any time. Maybe you want to add another comp you found in. You can edit that at any time. So it's not set in stone. You can also do property flyers. If you're holding an open house for someone, it doesn't even have to be your listing, by the way. Maybe you're holding an open house for this property and you just want to do a nice flyer for it. What's this one? By just picking the template style and putting in the MLS number, this happened to be a listing I had in Troy, you can actually create, and by the way, you can even edit. As you notice, I didn't, there's not a whole lot of detail of the inside. I wanted them to call me, so I'd give them a tour. But there's all different template style of flyers that you can do. Actually, I think this is the one you can actually do the QR code. Yes. If they wanted more information on the property, they can even scan the QR code. And I like this. I think this is very cool. If they scan the QR code with their phone, yes, they have the flyer on their phone, which they can share, but it also goes through, this is an example I did for another company, but it also goes through the details from the MLS and a contact me page. It shows more detail. It even shows things like area restaurants and points of interest like golf courses. And you can choose whether you want, I'm not a huge fan of the Zillow's estimates, but there's even a Zillow page you can choose to add in, or you can remove it. totally your choice. But I love how easy it is to create the flyers. That's the big one. There is a buyer tour. I had some first-time home buyers. They were very, very nervous. And so I just made them a cute little buyer tour. Here, let me show you this one. I think it was this one. And what it does is it basically, when you pick a couple properties you're going to be showing, it creates a contact me page. And it shows them the 2 properties we're going to see today, information from the MLS on it. I can send it to their phone. I can show them all the interior photos, even information on the local schools, and which property we're going to see first, area restaurants, and there's even a place for them to rate what they thought and take notes. So some cool things you can do there too. But that's not my favorite. My favorite is actually the lead generation piece in Cloud CMA. So that's where I actually want to take you. So up here, where you're going to make sure you've added your photo, it might be just your initials if you haven't customized your Cloud account. And remember, there's no upsells to this. This is just a class on everything that you get as being a UPAR member. These are all those great member benefits that you get from UPAR for just being a member. But if you go under the picture that's here or your initials, you'll see account settings where you can go in and add your company name or change your phone number. By the way, this does not pull directly from Paragon. So you do have to put your photo in, and you do have to set up the information that you want to appear at the bottom. It's a totally separate company. We do feed the company name and some base information over, but as far as photos and things of that nature, that is something you do have to do if you haven't set your account up before. But really what I want to show you is lead generation and custom pages. Remember how I said that you could bring anything you wish in as a custom page? In order to do that, you can click on custom pages, and this is where you can pull in anything. Now, by the way, they have a couple that are already made for you. So let's say you just wanted to open up the resume template here, and you wanted to put in your resume. You can click on that little pencil icon. You can go in and you can type in a resume, you could put links in, you could put photos in, but many companies have those beautiful PDFs that they've already designed for you, or maybe you want to pull in those property photos, maybe you want to pull in the listing ticket, or those market stats on what's going on in the market, or the BS&A record. So how do you do that? And as I mentioned, I even like to do and you can do it in both in zip form, you can do it in transaction desk, but I wanted to auto calculate that. I wanted to put the unpaid taxes, the unpaid water bill, and I like that you can do all that in zip form and transaction desk. So I just pulled those in. So to bring those in, it's a really simple process. I'm gonna do it with you here. As you can see, I've got quite a few in here. I'm gonna go down to upload PDF. And I'm literally just going to find what I want to bring in. So if it's a BS&A record or it's the tax record, I'm just going to double click on it. And now it's available as a custom page for me to pull right into my CMA. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. So I pulled the BS&A record in. Now, if you remember, when you're doing your CMA, there's all those options. What do you want to be on the report versus what do you want to be in there? So I'm going to say I want to pull that BS&A record in. So I'm going to go into my CMA. I'm going to hit that customize button. Everything else is really done for you. I'm going to go to my custom pages. It always drops your latest one to the bottom, just so you're aware. So for the sake of time, we'll do some fast scrolling here. I'm going to click on that tax. And now it's going to drop that tax PDF in and I can again move it around where I want it to appear in my report. Lastly, because I added something new, one last step, you do want to make sure that you publish it or save it. That's it. You've now added your custom page in. All right, the next one is lead generation. My final, and this is a really cool tool if you have not used it. We actually teach this in the lead generation class as well. Great way to post out onto social media and not only post good information, but to capture the lead so you can actually communicate with them. So many of us are working so hard to, pull great information, post it out onto social media, which is wonderful, and it shows you're knowledgeable, and that's all well and good, but are you capturing the lead to work with them? Because that's really what matters, right? If you're just constantly pushing out information with nothing in return, is that really working for you? So I'm going to kind of show you how their lead generation works. And I'll show you some things that you can do with it. So let me go back here for just a moment. Let me open up Facebook so I can actually show you. Okay, so right under your avatar again, where we added our custom pages, there's lead generation. Lead generation is basically done for you. There's nothing you have to do. It basically creates what we call a squeeze page or a landing page. And what this does is, and if you want to see yours, you just click on view my landing page, but basically you want to copy the link, and I'm going to tell you why. I have copied this into my email signature. You can, of course, embed it on your website. You can put it on Facebook, you can put it on Twitter, you can share it on Pinterest right from here. But basically what I've done is I've now posted this, I've copied that, I've gone into Facebook, and I'll show you one I just recently did here. So you can kind of, I'm kind of an example girl. I kind of like to see everything. I mean, it's all well and good, but let me actually see it. Because, everybody can tell you about it. When you can actually see an example of someone doing it, that usually helps me a whole lot more. So, okay, so this was what I posted. I posted a graph on some of local areas over by me. The graph is interactive, so they can click into it. They can see the updated numbers. And this happens to be price per square foot over the last 3 years. So basically, I put my quick call to action in. I said, this market's crazy hot. Sellers are getting so much more for their homes than they have before. Want similar results? Just click on the link below. Call me or click on the link below. When they click on this Cloud CMA landing page, let me show you exactly what happened. So I just copied the link right into my post. When I go to that link, it's going to ask that person on Facebook, would you like to know what your home is worth? Just enter in your property address. Now, most people get a little hesitant when they have to deal with an agent until they're 100% ready, right? They want to kick the fence a little. They want to have some idea of what their home is worth. So here they can start typing their address and they figure, oh, well, you know what? It's just going to tell me what my home is worth. So they will actually put in their name and their email address. And by the way, it does verify it's a real email address because it's going to send them their report. They can put in an optional phone number, and they can even include their square footage if they want. When they click email my report, it'll show them it found it on the map. And what happens is they immediately get a pop-up that says, if you want a more accurate valuation of your home, give Colleen a call here, or here's her email. But actually, the real cool thing is behind the scenes. They just received a CMA that did not tell them what their home is worth. What it did is it delivered my contact information. It delivered a overhead shot of their home with their address and some base information, and a couple random comps they could find basically on any IDX site. They could find it on Zillow, Realtor.com, of a couple closed in their area. It does not give them the number. That's what you're for, right? What you just got as the agent behind the scenes is you just got their address and their contact information so that you can now follow up with that lead and do a real CMA. So you're going to follow up with something like, hey, Sally Sue, I see you just requested a CMA. You did a ton of updates when I was there for the last barbecue. You know, I'd love to come over and take a look at your home and tell you what it's actually worth. So the idea is it's squeezing the information out of them. You're giving some great information about you and some random comps and about how you'd market the property and what you put in as a custom page. But really what it's designed to do is it's really designed to put you two together as sort of a lead generator. Okay, so that is really all of I had. Doesn't that? So I got one cool and doesn't that irk people? No, you know, it does have some cool information as far as homes around them and what the homes around them are selling for. So it does actually kind of tell them It doesn't put the number in front of them, because that's really what they need us for. Because let's face it, if you walk into that home and it doesn't look pristine, or maybe they have 5 cats and doesn't really smell like you would want it to smell if you were buying it, there is value to that. And if they really want to know, what their home is worth. Now, granted, if they, you call them and they hang up on you, I don't know that I would keep calling them, but it is designed really to give them some base information. It does tell them about local restaurants. I mean, there's a whole lot that can be included in that. And you actually can set up a template. The template that will go to them automatically has to be called something very specific. It's web lead. So let me show you that and we'll wrap up. Web lead is what you call the template. So let me go back to Cloud real quick here. When you go into your CMAs, remember how I said you could create different templates, and I'll just open up one kind of randomly just for the sake of time today. When you go into customize, and you can have as many templates as you like, but if you go into the template section, you want to create one that is called, and it has to be called this exactly, web lead. That's what gets delivered to anyone who clicks on that link. That will have hopefully your custom page of who you are, maybe your marketing plan, maybe how long you've been in the business. Maybe you work for Habitat for Humanity. You do a lot of volunteer things. Maybe you want to have that in your web lead. You can make it as short or as long as you want. Remember, you don't want to make it too long, because you do want, you just want to have a couple random comps, and then you just want to show them a little bit of information about you. No one wants a lead that's 72 pages long, right? So the idea is it's an exchange of some basic property information, as well as for you, you're getting that phone number. So hopefully you can see how it just is really designed to put you two together. We did record this class because I know that if you're like me by now, your head is kind of like, wow, well, where do I start again? Remember, you're just starting in Paragon. You are just selecting your comps. The hardest part is just remembering where that easy button is. It's the plug. It's the plug-in or the action, and that pulls it into Cloud. But we did record this class, so if you missed any part, or maybe you had to step away because maybe you're getting an offer and you wanted to, have a quick conversation, it is available in the UPAR playlist, which you can find at YouTube.com/MyRealSourceMedia. I'm just going to show it to you real quick. I created an entire playlist of nothing but UPAR classes. So if you missed something, you need to see it again, you can go back and you can rewatch it as many times as you want. Again, when you go to YouTube.com/MyRealSourceMedia, you just want to click on the playlist. One of the very first playlists that come up are the Upper Peninsula Association of Realtors. Once you click on the playlist, it will show you all of the classes. Just click on the one you're looking for, and it will take you right to that particular feature or class. All right, well, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Happy selling, goal list. We really need the inventory. So if you do have any questions, there is a place in the follow-up survey for them. Hopefully, I think I got them all. I think I have them all, but if I missed any, again, you can put them right in the follow-up survey. So thank you for your time, everybody. Hope you have a great day and happy selling.